Virginia. What happened in Virginia?
No one knows.
Democrats still trying to figure it out.
Edward Durr won his little Senate race on $200 in New Jersey.
Less than
$200. $66 he spent on donuts. Uh-oh.
Well, $66 well spent.
If the government came and gave you federal COVID money, would you take it?
No.
Our Sheriff Wheeler up north didn't.
No.
Yes.
Our sheriff is not Sheriff Wheeler.
I know.
But we
Hey,
can wish. We can wish.
Welcome to CrossPolitic on the Sunday special. Look at we're crowded here. We got the Pugcast guys here. We got Dr. Price, Dr. Wiley, Dr. Sunshine, and then Waterboy. No doctor, no nothing.
Right before we started, he was asking Wiley what they've been talking about on their tour, because they're on their Northwest tour.
Yep.
And Wiley was like, well, it's kind of hard to explain. And Gabe was like, so you're saying I wouldn't understand it?
Yeah. And Chris didn't really argue with me on that point. Didn't really.
He just kind of looked at Gabe like,
all right.
You get it.
Hey, as you guys know, we're suspended on YouTube until November 22nd. So make sure you download our app. We actually put our Worldview series into the app. So you can go in and actually listen to our Worldview series in the app.
It's a Worldview shotgun series.
Bam.
Thank you.
So make sure you check that out. And, of course, join the club. Support what we got going on. Man, 2022 is coming around the corner. We got a lot of plans. We need your support. So join the club. Support what we're doing. We're growing. Thank you.
All right. Is this the part where I do the plug?
Hey, guys, we got a new corporate sponsor. Speaking of plugs, a new corporate sponsor.
During COVID, pornography use increased by over 23%. Depression rates tripled, and screen time increased by 5 hours a day.
Wow.
I'm sure doing very intelligent and helpful things.
Very productive.
These are extremely alarming statistics, especially now we're seeing the need for true biblical accountability on our digital media. Accountable to you. Oh, look at that. See, it's on the
coffee mug.
I love when our sponsors give us mugs. It's so nice.
It's an accountability software that runs on your phone or your computer and shares detailed activity reports with a partner that you choose. Having accountability in place is a proven way to fight temptation, safeguard integrity, and provide peace of mind in your family. Don't wait until it's too late. Start your free trial today at accountable2you. That's the number 2. And then the word you.com/FLF.
And make sure you put in the FLF so they know as a corporate partner the value of what we're trying to do for him.
Heard about him from us.
And I want to add one thing here. Most people probably familiar with Covenant Eyes.
Yeah.
Technology. I really do like accountable to use approach. They are not wooden about the whole process, and they're not as I think theologically and how they approach it's better than Covenant Eyes. I really do. I've talked to the guys. I got to know them and everything, and so I'm actually really excited about this partnership and everything. So, all right. So New Jersey.
Yes.
Okay. Not New Jersey. I actually want to start in Virginia, not New Jersey.
Okay.
We'll get to New Jersey here in a second. Governor Youngkin beat the Democrat. He was actually a 2-term McAuliffe. So how Virginia works?
Youngkin.
Like Yogi Berra, Yogin.
Young.
Thought you do it. I'm not lying. That's not a lie. Just because I said it the way I wanted to say it doesn't mean it's a lie.
That's how Gabe always says it. He just says whatever he wants to say.
So Virginia's an odd state where you can run for governor, win 2 terms, but then you got to take a break. You got to take a break for 1 term, and then you can run again.
Okay.
So McAuliffe was running again. He's already been a 2-term governor in Virginia. He ran against Youngkin, and the Republican Youngkin won.
Yep.
In Virginia. Now, what kind of, and it's a big surprise, kind of a shock to the system, very bad reflection on Biden and everything. In fact, he was at the G20 summit, I think, in the climate change summit, talking about how the polls are just, they're just a little off right now. I'm fine.
You mean when he wasn't sleeping?
At that summit? Yeah.
He was talking about the voting machines were fine. That's what he was
At the climate change summit?
That's right.
What do you mean we didn't use the same voting machines?
Well, and Obama was there too just a week ago, telling everybody to stop worrying about all these, crazy right-wing
CRT's not real
conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
And
let's not forget Kamala Harris, who said that what happens in Virginia will be a portent for what happens in 2022, 2024, and thereafter.
Right. She's right.
Yes.
Here's hoping.
Let's hope.
Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, she's a prophetess. And a word of knowledge.
Blah, blah, blah. Blah, blah, blah.
But what I want to point out is a lot of pundits, Republican pundits, everyone's excited. All the Republicans and conservatives are excited about this. But a lot of the pundits are saying, "Hey, look at the campaign he run. Youngkin ran a great campaign. He kind of he played this balance between President Trump, kind of not really acknowledging President Trump, but kind of taking on some of Trump's issues and kind of embodying some of that, and then kind of fighting CRT and all this stuff. And that's why he won the race.
Yeah.
I think he won the race because he was not Biden. He was not Democrat.
He was not McCaughlin.
He was not McCaughlin.
Yeah.
Which scares me because I think actually the first time he's going to have to defend something conservatively, he's going to run like a coward like all the other Republicans would.
Yeah, I think people definitely voted not because of his campaign, but mainly because of what they didn't want.
Right.
Yeah, I think he was handed something.
Yes. Say it again.
And he was handed something, especially up in Loudoun County.
100%.
Yeah, my family. I mean, I grew up in Virginia, so I was very happy to see this change take place.
Right.
My family, who live there,
In Loudoun County?
They live in Richmond, but still, they're impacted by the whole state with Northam and all the rest of it. It really has taken a different direction radically than the way it used to.
And it's extreme. Like this not just like old school Democrats.
That's right.
It's like
Well, it is a little bit because they're wearing KKK and blackface. I mean, so there's a little old school Democrat there.
Yeah.
But like this
message,
this extreme like sex ed stuff in the classroom that's basically pornographic and let's help your kids become homosexuals.
And you do not have the right to say anything about your kids' education. That's our job.
It's all that, and leave it to the professionals to take care of your kids.
That was the issue, I think, that handed it.
Yeah.
I think that's when it moved in the direction of Youngkin.
Really, when McAuliffe said parents should not have a say in their kids' education.
I think that was the handing of it.
So I'm sorry, my head kind of is popping off, exploding. But what have they been doing for the last 50, 60 years there?
Oh, yeah. I mean, when I was in Boston, I was involved with an effort called the Parents' Rights Initiative. I was actually in the presence of state senators on Beacon Hill, and I heard them say those sorts of things in the 90s.
Yeah.
So this isn't new.
Yeah.
I mean, what's happened is a kind of revelation. Middle America is learning about something that they've just not known about, but people like Glenn and Tom and I have had firsthand experience with in academia. This is stuff that we've seen coming for decades. And we would tell people, it's coming. They'd all just say, oh, you're overreacting. It's not going to happen. People aren't that crazy.
Sounded like Obama said when he was in Richmond.
Right.
In Virginia.
Yes. Yeah.
So so there's a lot of interesting stuff that's gone on in Virginia in all this. But
actually, before you move off Virginia, I want to talk about down ticket.
Yeah.
The lieutenant governor?
The lieutenant governor.
Attorney general?
And attorney general. The lieutenant
racist.
The lieutenant governor is a Jamaican immigrant.
Right.
Yep.
Black.
Right.
Yeah, man.
Marine.
Okay.
The attorney general is Hispanic.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Amigo.
The reason the election went the way it went was because of white supremacy.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
They pulled that one out again.
Come on, Glenn. This is the new face of white supremacy. Okay?
So all the white supremacists are black, and all the people who are fighting for civil rights are white.
Tripology. And if you're white and you wear blackface, you aren't racist.
It's funny because
the new face
that's identifying with the minority.
That's right. It's amazing to me that the Democrats have no problem saying that critical race theory that is the new boogeyman of the right, but white supremacy is the boogeyman of the left.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just they're like it's everywhere. White supremacy everywhere. I was like, man, if white supremacy was like this back in the day.
Sign me up.
Wouldn't need to be no underground railroads. You know what I'm saying? This is a new form of white supremacy.
Okay, so now in New Jersey, we got this hilarious situation where this no-name Republican truck driver won the race against the president Senate in New Jersey.
Yeah.
Well, Glenn is from New Jersey.
Oh.
So he can help us understand how this could possibly happen.
Real quick, before we get there, let me play the campaign video of this guy real quick. This is what 100 of his dollars went to.
Hello, my name is Edward Derr. I'm running for New Jersey State Senate. I've lived here all my life, raising my 3 kids. In 2020, my opponent sat by and watched as Governor Murphy forced nursing homes to take in COVID-19 patients, resulting in the death of over 8,000 of our seniors. He remained silent as Governor Murphy, with his lockdown and mandates, forced the closing of over 1/3 of our small businesses, costing New Jersey family thousands of jobs. He has done nothing, as 7 out of every 10 moves are leaving the state, placing a heavier burden on those of us who remain. The Senate President has spent 20 years in Trenton. Higher taxes, increasing debt, and a rising cost of living. We deserve better. New Jersey, it's time for a change.
Yeah.
All right.
In his khakis.
So together, let's end single-party rule. Vote for me, Edward Durr, for Senate.
Durr. Edward Durr.
This is how it's done, ladies and gentlemen. This is how it's done.
Watch him zoom in. Zoom in. Yes.
Listen. I
And
think
a campaign video shot on your iPhone.
oh no.
No.
It was a very cheap camera. iPhone would look better.
Oh.
You know, if this is what it's going to take to win campaigns, these kind of videos, I'm out of business. Why do you need to hire a better quality filmmaker to do stuff? I just
so here's the deal. He spent according to records, because you got to report all the money he spent on campaigns. He spent $153 on his campaign. His opponent, the Democrat, this president, Senate Democrat, he raised like $2.7 million in this election.
There's a lot of mad people right now. I want my money back. Who do I talk to?
I need a refund, and I want the donut man. And so Edward Durr, he spent
$153,
and $97 of it was like on the video, and $66 was on donuts
At Dunkin' Donuts.
That's
was
right.
it.
It's got to be Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah, 'cause there's
Can't be
New
one of those
Jersey.
fancy
New
stores.
Jersey.
So Glenn, what's going on here, man?
People from New Jersey can be really ornery. And I think that this is what we're seeing here. When you get them pissed off, they get really pissed off and they do crazy things.
Yeah.
This is is it that easy?
Well, you got to look like that guy.
And
and you got to have a Harley.
I sort of wish
And you got to
it were,
kind of like
but
walk toward the camera.
This is
constantly.
I mean,
Every shot, walk towards the camera like a badass.
with your beer belly out.
What was with the cemetery? I mean, it was just sort of
Because
like
he's talking about people dying, COVID from COVID deaths,
Like,
nursing
Now
home
that
deaths.
was a brilliant move.
a lot of time in the cemetery, and I was like, who?
There was a little production thought in that shot.
it sounds like something you would produce. But
except it came up before he talked about the nursing home death.
Yeah, that was the confusing part.
The
It was
timing
after,
was
it was
a
after
little
that.
off.
That
He
was-
got there.
but it kind
He
of
was like, I'm from, like, all my family was in New Jersey, and I was thinking, like, are they all dead, or are they?
the government killed.
I thought it was a new version of Night of the Living Dead.
But that's what's so crazy about this.
Trucker version, trucker series.
If you're the opposition and you see something like this happen, you would think, man, we really got to go check our messaging. Like, how bad have we been in this? But that's not what they're doing. They're doubling down and saying, oh, this is another. I don't know how this screams white supremacy, but give them a second. They'll figure out. Maybe the Harley.
the Harley.
It's the
That's
Harley.
what it
It's
is.
the Harley.
But I think there's two things here. One is, if it's this simple, then it's not shame on the other side, it's shame on us. Because that means that we haven't been engaging the way that we need to if it's this simple. You know, Joseph back home, we've talked to him before. He's a good friend of ours on the show. He says, look, if we can just get Christians to spend 10 minutes a year,
Involved in politics.
just doing some basic things in
10
politics.
minutes.
A year. The whole landscape of politics would be completely different.
He was in Washington State for about a decade, working for Family Policy Alliance, I think it was, and just trying to get Christians to be educated and know when there were elections in situations like to vote. And he said he could list off multiple instances where it had everything to do with who actually showed up.
Yeah.
That's why, somebody got elected, city council, whatever, some kind of initiative passed and what have you. And he said over and over again, it was just if the Christians would just show up, it would have been, there would have been a completely different story.
So what you need to do is you need to run when alcohol's on the ballot or something, like deregulating alcohol, and you get a bunch of people to show up. That's kind of what he was saying.
Yeah, well,
he's like, if you connected actually a ballot to the election.
He said it wasn't even that complicated.
Yeah.
I mean, he was just saying, like, just show up, just show. And his issue over and over again was that it was white evangelicals that wouldn't. Like, he had the hardest time getting white evangelicals because they were like, well, we don't want to be political, and the churches didn't want them and all that kind of thing. And he said it was oftentimes immigrants and minorities that would actually be like, come on in, tell us what's going on, and we'll show up. And frequently it was because they knew what it was like to be oppressed.
Yeah. One of the things we have to say about this is this ad wasn't what won that campaign for him.
Yeah.
Biden did. It's, this would never have worked in another year. But The fact that this guy had been in the New Jersey Senate longer than any legislator in New Jersey history,
Right.
that he was the president of the Senate, that everybody is annoyed at the Democrats for CRT, for Afghanistan. Taxes were a big thing in Jersey. They don't want to see tax increase because they're already taxed up to their earlobes.
Yes.
It's all of those things that actually
And
made
the
this thing
lockdown,
work.
Shutdowns.
the lockdown
The
stuff.
COVID lockdown. All of this.
I saw tweets being shared about the Virginia election, and there were people on Twitter saying, "I'm a lifelong Democrat. I'm pro-choice, but I'm voting for Youngkin because I'm sick and tired of the shutdowns." So, I mean that was that's been done. I mean, that's happening in Virginia, and I'm sure it's happening as well in New Jersey.
Well.
That's all?
No, that's scary. Yeah, we'll have more. We have another segment or two, but
Maybe 4.
Maybe what? Nobody told me about the 4th segment.
No, we are Trinitarian.
Yeah. When we come back, we're gonna talk to the good Reverend Bishop Pastor Doc. I'll just put them all in there. C.R. Wiley,
Bombadil.
the House of Tom Bombadil. Man, this is series. This is book 3 in the series.
This guy wasn't even like a main character.
Or was he? Next on CrossPolitic.
Hi, I'm Robert Borton, CEO of Classical Conversations. Our most precious commodity is time. No one has ever lied on their deathbed wishing they had spent more time making money. They all wish they had spent more time creating a legacy. Our modern education system steals that legacy, steals that time from our children. That's why I'm passionate about homeschooling. That's why at Classical Conversations we want to give you more time to create that legacy, follow your passions, and glorify God. Visit classicalconversations.com for more information.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yes, sir.
Oh boy.
It's one of those shows.
Got a hiya.
Yep.
Hey, welcome back to CrossPolitic on the Fight Laugh Feast Network. Thank you for joining us. We are grateful to have the Pugcast in the house.
I've been waiting for this. I really have.
A long time.
Yes.
Yes. Me too, actually. This
This every week together. if you want.
every week?
You got to use your microphone, man.
That's right. We can do this every week.
There we go. There we go.
Don't play with me.
I mean, I don't know if we can do this every week. Keep not using that mic. I'm not going to ask you back.
Hey, this segment's brought to you by Cornerstone Work and Worldview Institute. Did you know that more than 75% of those raised in evangelical, Presbyterian, and Reformed churches don't pursue any kind of Christian higher education? They say surprising, isn't it? I'm going to say, given the state of our country, no, I'm not surprised.
It makes sense.
Cornerstone Work and Worldview Institute is seeking to provide a new, exciting, and affordable option for Christians. Their mission is to build kingdom culture in the workplace by equipping students in a Trinitarian worldview and vocational competencies. I really love that combo. Trinitarian worldview and vocational competencies. The low-cost full-time program offers integrative course modules, internships, and mentoring so students can finish debt-free, with vocational preparation, a robust faith, and financial potential to build strong, godly families and homes rooted in their communities and churches long-term. The program is offered face-to-face in beautiful Southern Illinois or remotely anywhere you are. Visit the website at cornerstonework.org.
I feel like Chris is like, you teach there or you own this or something.
That's right. This is actually mine. It's whether I've heard of it. Sounds great. Sounds great.
Yeah.
So in the house of Tom Bombadil, speaking of houses, and being men of the house and having a war for the cosmos
And not main characters.
and Tom Bombadil.
Tom Bombadil.
This is the third book.
It's
in the
all
series.
about Tom. I don't think people get it. I think it really is
Gabe,
all about
Gabe doesn't
Tom.
get it.
He's this obscure character that just pops up in like 2.5 chapters, and you wrote a whole book on him.
Well, he took over the story.
Ooh, there you go. How did he do it? How did he take over the whole story?
Well, actually, he's actually appears at different points in the book in terms of being referred to. Mm-hmm. So he's actually referred to at certain points in the story that are pretty important.
Yeah.
So his kind of the thing that Tolkien was doing with him. First of all, Tolkien said that he was up to something with him.
Uh-huh.
So he admits,
Like in some of his letters or
some of his letters. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he says, and then he also told the person he was writing to that he was intentionally obscure, or he was not trying to be explicit with what he was doing. He was enigmatic. That was the term he used, the word he used. So Tom is an enigma, and an enigma is something that
kind of like Melchizedek.
Yeah, it gets you thinking.
Not a main character, but kind of reference kind
so
of thing?
kind of like, who is this guy? You know, he steps into the story, like Melchizedek, he steps into the story, and you're like, wow, this guy is pretty significant, and then he steps out again. So, yeah, there's a lot going on with Bombadil in those chapters, but also throughout the rest of the book.
So I want to take this back, though, because this is, I didn't know that this is a series, but I realized that as I started reading, there's house here, there's house there, man of the house.
It's a trilogy, baby.
Okay.
Household in the War for the Cosmos.
Yeah, I didn't see it coming.
Well, if you put the books right next to each other, they look nothing alike.
Yeah, right.
That's the genius of it.
Right. But I did see that as I was reading to the House and War for the Cosmos that, you know, you started with man of the house, and you're kind of structuring man in this particular way, and by the time you bring in the war in the House for the Cosmos,
no, household in the War for the Cosmos.
Household.
You said it really great.
I like
I like the war in the house.
House of the Cosmos.
Well, most homes are a war.
Okay, well, yeah.
And they haven't.
Don't Google that; you won't find the book. And now you have Tom Bombadil, the House of Tom Bombadil. When you start, we were talking to this about a little bit, and I don't know who Bombadil is at all. I didn't. Gabe's read more Tolkien than I have. I just saw the movies. So
and he never popped up in the movies.
Right.
and he's not in the movie. So why take this particular person and start working that into your series of books?
Yeah, well, you know, you can't do everything.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm going to stop you. It's going to have to flip the other way because, it's not across the top. It's actually going to have to be,
Oh, like that, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Like a rapper.
That's
right.
That's that preacher.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
It's like a Pentecostal preacher.
That's right. Come on now. That's right.
But yeah, so with each of the books, you know, I'm up to something different. And in the first book, I was essentially, you know, trying to do one thing. The second book, a different thing. Third book was intended to address some things that I wanted to talk about but hadn't gotten to, but I think are really important. And really, when it comes to the theme of my book on Bombadil, it's about dominion, what genuine dominion looks like. So I'll leave it with that. More.
Okay.
The book.
Well, that was a really
No, you got to
short interview.
So we're in. It really was. It was
So
like,
I'm done.
So,
Well, where do people buy the book at?
so
You can buy
why,
wherever better books are sold.
why use Tom Bombadil to represent that character regarding dominion?
Because it actually comes up.
Yeah, well, I'm like, illustrate it for me.
Well,
like
okay.
I'm telling you, I'm like Knox. I missed Bombadil. I missed it. I
so
saw the
if-
ring. The ring went in there, and then like that was it.
But you've not read the books.
What? Oh no, I've read them. I've read them.
Okay, so
Yeah.
if you recall,
and the movies.
Well, if you recall in the books, everybody is wondering who is Bombadil.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, so Frodo asks, "Who are you?" You know, he asks his wife Goldberry, "Who is he?" He asks Bombadil, "Who are you?" And then throughout the story, you know, you don't really get a very clear idea who this guy is. But what you learn is he may be the most powerful creature in Middle Earth.
Oh, do explain.
Yeah, well, there's this particular point in the story, and everybody's intimidated by the ring, right?
Yeah.
So everybody who's good doesn't want to be corrupted by the ring.
Right.
Right? They don't even want to touch it. Gandalf doesn't want to touch it. Galadriel doesn't want to touch it. Elrond doesn't want to touch it.
Yeah. Right.
Aragorn could have taken it at any time and never even tried.
Right.
But anybody who, you know, is evil wants it, and people who want to use the ring, even for things that they think are good, like Boromir, are tempted and they're corrupted by it.
Right.
And even in the end, Frodo, who's, you know, the best of hobbits, he is corrupted by the ring at the very end. He doesn't actually voluntarily throw the ring into Mount Doom.
Right.
You know, the reason is that it gets into Mount Doom is someone who's been even corrupted more than he has, Gollum, bites his finger off and takes the ring.
Actually, there's another interesting point there. Earlier on, Frodo talked to Gollum and said, "If you try to touch me again," and it's actually the ring speaking, I will command you to. I will put it on and command you to throw yourself into the fire.
Yeah.
And he does.
And so the ring actually caused its own destruction.
Yeah. So there's a lot of fun stuff going on, but when they're in the house of Tom Bombadil, there's actually a chapter in the Fellowship of the Ring titled "In the House of Tom Bombadil," and while they're there, they're, you know, spending time with Tom, and Tom is telling them stories. They're having a great time sitting at the table eating and stuff like that. And Tom just looks at Frodo and says, "Show me the precious ring." So Tom, you know,
Just like that too. Just like that too.
oh yeah.
Can you do it again for me?
Show me the precious ring.
Oh, it was not.
You were Tom Bombadil.
He actually says it though in kind of a humorous way. I was sort of like in a menacing way.
Yeah. It
But
works.
anyway, so Frodo doesn't even hesitate. He just pulls the ring out and just hands it over to Tom.
Yeah.
That never happens in any part of the story. Every
that
time
never happens.
Yeah, and any other point in the story where Frodo has to produce the ring, he's reticent. He doesn't want anybody to see it. He wants to keep it to himself. Right. Anyway, he hands it right over to him, and Frodo's like surprised that he did that. And then Tom picks up the ring, puts it to his eye, kind of makes fun of it.
Yeah.
Then he puts it on his little finger, and Tolkien makes a point of saying it was his little finger. And then he doesn't disappear.
Yeah.
And he just looks at them and laughs. And then he flips the ring into the air and makes it disappear. He made the ring disappear.
Wow.
And then like an uncle at like after dinner, he pulls it out. He said, "Here you go, Frodo."
So Tom is actually Edward Durr.
So wait.
He is that awesome.
Okay.
He's a badass. He made this President's Senate disappear.
So what does it have to do with dominion?
Well, at the point in the story where Frodo asks his wife, Goldberry, she says, "Who is Tom Bombadil?" She just looks at him and says, "He is." Stop. Full stop. He is as you have seen him. And then Frodo's like puzzled by
Looking like me right now.
Yeah, just like that. And then she says, "He is the master." That's it. He's the master of wood.
So is this a Father Christ, a figure, a type of God? What's going on?
Well, there's been a lot of people who've speculated on that statement. He is thinking about
I am
Moses.
who I am.
Yep.
Yep.
But
that would be
Tolkien actually denied that.
Okay.
Because that was something that other people had suggested. That is this the Iluvatar? Is this the creator? And Tolkien said no.
So I read an article. You talked a little bit about the book, and you said that Tom Bombadil was powerful because he knew how the world was made and he knew the songs of the time.
Right. Well, if you think about if you know the Legendarium, which is the enormous backstory to Lord of the Rings, it includes the creation story, and in the creation story, the world of Middle Earth is sung into being.
Oh,
It's one of the most beautiful tellings. It's in the Silmarillion.
Eat that mic. Eat that mic.
In the Silmarillion.
Oh, both of y'all have this booming voice, and you're not even using
I know.
it. I don't have that kind of voice. I have to make mine deeper.
So anyway, anytime that Tom is kind of on the scene, he's singing, or at least he sounds like he's singing, because even just talking has kind of got a lyrical quality to it.
Sing-songy.
Yeah, and then he delivers them first from Old Man Willow, which is a tree. He delivers them the second time from the Barrow-wight in a tomb.
Yes.
Tree
of knowledge of good and evil.
Tree, tomb. Tree, tomb.
Yeah. Come on.
Come on now.
Yeah, you preaching now. Come on.
Now, I don't want to make too much of that. That could be just a coincidence.
No.
There's nothing in Tolkien.
I don't think so.
But there's nothing in Tolkien where he says, "That's what I meant." But it is odd that those are the two. And the situation with the Barrow-wight, when he saves them, so there's a Barrow-wight, which is like a spirit that inhabits a tomb. And all of the hobbits have been captured by the Barrow-wight, and they're about to be killed. They're in their grave clothes. They're about to have their heads chopped off. So there's actually a hand that's creeping up. Like, you remember Thing from the book?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You remember Thing from the Addams Family? It's kind of like that. It's coming, and it's coming for the sword, chop off their heads. And at that moment, Frodo remembers the little rhyme that Tom had taught them.
Yes.
To save them if they found themselves in trouble. So he remembers that, and he's just kind of croaks it out. And next thing you know, you hear Tom coming, and the rocks start rolling away from the tomb. Another interesting phenomenon. The rocks are rolling away from the tomb. and then
I'm making this together.
It's the sun is coming up, so it's dawn.
Yes.
And then Tom's
Sunday.
Tom's head pops in.
Yeah.
He says,
Which is how Jesus did it. You know, he's like, "Hey, I rose again."
And then they all come out, and they're just happy and running around, and it's great story. But anyway, there are certain things about Tom that if you understand kind of what Tolkien was into, what his interests intellectually were, you can see all sorts of stuff in Tom. Well, generally in Lord of the Rings generally, but in Tom in particular, that tell you that Tolkien is up to some stuff with Tom.
Chris, have you given much thought, or did you address this in your book at all, to the placement of Tom Bombadil so early in the story?
Yeah,
because it is striking that you have all that, and then it's like, and then it
chaos everywhere.
And then it just and then it fades and it's in the background of everything.
Right.
What's up with that?
Well, I have a friend, Rachel Fulton Brown. She teaches at the University of Chicago, and we've had her on the show on the Pugcast.
Okay.
And Rachel talked a lot about how she thought that particular episode with Tom was kind of like their catechesis into the meaning of Middle Earth, because there are all sorts of things going on as he's with them and talking to them. Yeah. And there's a kind of baptism kind of imagery of, in the background with Goldberry and the rain day and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, if you want to know more, buy the book. But anyway, Rachel is a great resource. Rachel Fulton Brown. By the way, Rachel would be a great person on CrossPolitic.
Okay. We'll reach out, Rachel. Either they do get their weapons in the barrow.
Right, in the barrow. That's where
they get their swords that then they carry for the rest of the story.
Right.
I mean, all the way to the very end in the cleansing of the Shire.
Right.
It's like the apostles got their swords,
which you wouldn't know about.
Okay, I see where this is going.
And these are swords from the uttermost, not from the uttermost west, but for the men of the West. Right. These are the swords of Westernese. Yeah. Right. So these are, the ancestors of Aragorn.
Yes.
And the swords that they made, which have spells cast on them to thwart the evil of the Witch King of Angmar, who, by the way, is the Lord of the Nazgul.
I got to tell you guys, this has been interesting. I think Nate Wilson, when I first met him, one of the things he said is like, I'm thinking we need more Christian apologists. I think we need more Christian this, that, the other thing. And he says, no, we need more good Christian fiction. And one of the things I have to say about the Theology Pugcast is that you guys have really helped me understand just how magical and how amazing God's world is. By the very high and deep philosophical conversations that you guys have, you really bring it down, and I get to understand it. But I get to understand it in a way that I can apply it immediately to life. And I just want to thank you guys for doing that. So I want to ask this question, but we're going to have to save it to the next thing. But I want you guys to think about it while we go to break. I want to ask you guys, what are the songs that we've forgotten that we need to learn again and start learning how to sing? What are those songs? And along with that,
let's go, Brandon.
Whoa.
Well, we got Gabe's answer. So, and the other thing is, Alexander Solzhenitsyn said, live not by lies. And we had a chance to talk to Rod Dreher recently. And reading his book, he does a good job of explaining in his book, Live Not by Lies, what it means not to live by lies, which is you just don't obey the things that you know aren't true, which would seem very simple, but it's not. Everybody put on a mask. We've had science about masks for years, and everybody put it on. Everybody knows the government doesn't teach you how to raise your kid. Everybody knows these things, but they're living by these lies. And I want to ask you guys, what are some of the lies that you think that we're living by that we don't even know? So we know some of the basic things, but there's other lies that are foundational lies that open up the rest of everything else of where we're at. So I want to ask you guys, when we come back
from the break, question.
Those two things, what are the songs and what are the lies? More CrossPolitic coming up next.
I'm excited. I want to be part of that segment. Welcome back to CrossPolitic. This is the third segment.
So we got a little Glen Morangi.
Oh, nice.
Glen Morangi, 12-year.
In honor of Dr. Glenn Sunshine.
Sherry Cass finish.
Wait, so is our second segment is that like the Baptist segment of CrossPolitic?
Well, it's on NRB TV, so we got to kind of,
Yeah. But this is the Presbyterian segment.
that all the Baptists come to anyway.
They're like, what are they doing?
They're in the hall.
You've heard the joke about the difference between a Baptist in the liquor store and the Presbyterian in the liquor store. Right?
No.
Yeah, the Baptist. What makes the Baptist different from the Presbyterian is the Presbyterian says hi.
That's actually true. And tell you which one you need to get. Oh, try this one right here.
The Baptist just says I'm with the state liquor license facility.
I have a real story with that. Went to a little new pub in Raleigh when I lived there, and with some friends that went to the Independent Baptist Church. And lo and behold, one of the members was coming out when he was coming in. He didn't care. but the person in the Independent Baptist Church came up and said, they got a great hamburger here. I'm not kidding.
I bet they do. I bet they do.
Let me guess what it's called, a beer burger.
That's funny.
So you asked them a couple of questions. And I really don't know what.
Kind of loaded it up.
I did load it up, but I think
songs and lies.
Yeah, the songs of Tom Bombadil. What are the songs that, it seems like...
And you mean that like broadly? Like
I do mean that broadly.
The stories,
Yeah, but there was, even growing up, I remember there were a lot of people that I grew up with that weren't necessarily as theologically rich as I currently consider myself to be, but were some of the most faithful Christians you could ever be around. And they used to hum songs that... you would hear it permeate the house and the culture that we were in, and you could tell that song was the thing that anchored them in the world in such a way that you weren't going to move them. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I think is gone right now, is that kind of, we got our theology all good and worked out, and we've all become Gnostic. And we don't have any songs anymore that are attaching us to the world that God made. And so what are some of the songs that you guys see in the culture, I do mean that broadly, that we've forgotten as Christians that we need to start figuring out how to sing again?
The place I would go right away is with the old spirituals. I've been to a lot of concerts, a lot of Christian concerts. The only one I've been to that I felt like was a real worship experience was a choir that specialized in spirituals. And it's certainly not sophisticated theology in a lot of ways, but there's a depth of reality in the experiences that created those spirituals that I think is completely lacking in the kind of superficial feel-good stuff that we get on Christian radio.
I don't know, that worship leader that wrote that song in 15 minutes.
Well, and so you actually took let me broaden this out too, because
in his skinny jeans.
Yeah, he's
super authentic.
He's been through so much.
Yeah.
But
just pulling those pants on was kind of
that was a hard morning.
a hard day.
That's right. It was a near-death experience.
For all of us. But also, when I mean songs, literal songs too, but also I mean that in the way that we do life.
Yeah. Well, I know exactly. I think I know what you're getting at, Knox. A song that has always been very profound and rich for me is "God Moves in a Mysterious Way."
Yeah.
That song, first of all, written by a guy named William Cooper, who struggled with depression his entire life. He would have been considered suicidal. He spent some time in an insane asylum, so that song was written in the midst of a really dark place he was in. So he was in the valley. And I remember one time my wife and I brought a young woman to church with us whose husband had deserted her, just like within a week or two before we took her to church with us. And we didn't know what we were going to be singing in church that day, but that was one of the hymns that we sang. And she spent the rest of the service just looking at that hymn. Huh. She had never encountered it before. It was not part of her background at all. But it just overwhelmed her how profound that song is.
Tom.
Yeah, I think I'm going to take the hunch that you meant a little more than song when you mentioned song right there. More widely. But I think early on, you think about the early church, most of its doctrinal content was carried on through song, not just in a didactic way, but in a worship way. The Christology texts that we have developed, our doctrine of Christ, come right out of songs, hymns. So the intimacy between worship, doctrine, and life for early Christians was completely interwoven. There wasn't a bracketing out of our music as the taste that we have or something that is what makes us feel good, so much as we were wholly participants in this body of Christ and orienting our whole life towards eternity in Christ. And because of that, I think the aesthetic was different. What do I mean by that? The sense of spiritual beauty and what was of utmost significance radiated the early church communities, that in suffering they could count it all joy. But then you have, a suffering church is one that tends to also bring forth a depth of spirituality in the music that I think is missing because, especially in the West and its current places, hasn't suffered much. So that depth of connection, both to God and other things, sometimes it doesn't mean you have to suffer to commune with God or see the beauty and the interconnectedness with it. But on the other hand, there it does seem to go something hand in hand with utmost dependence on and putting one's whole life completely in the hands of God, and the springing forth of depth with song.
Well, to add to this, David was a songwriter before he was a warrior. He was a songwriter before he was a king. He'd learned how to live as a king by writing psalms.
Right.
When Jesus, we're coming up on Christmas, and you think of all the music that was created around the time of Christ's birth, Mary's, the Magnificat, Simeon's prophecy,
right?
Zacharias's after Zacharias. Yep. Zacharias, after he was not able to speak for 9 months, the first thing out of his mouth was a song.
Yeah.
And my kids were actually just talking about this last night. We were talking about "It Is Well," the song "It Is Well."
Yeah.
Wasn't my daughter Vita brought this up, and I remembered wasn't that song written that the guy who wrote it, his kids and wife had died on a boat, or there's a boat wreck or something. There's some sort of major catastrophe where the whole family died,
right.
And his response was, "It is well."
Right.
Like super powerful,
right.
And just showed the depth of who God is, even in tragedy. In his response to it as well.
Yeah.
Were you going to say something? I don't want to miss out anything you want to say.
I was going to say, notice the connection with all of this.
I'm sorry, you got to flip it up.
Especially the Magnificat and other episodes is the more one is about to encounter God in this sense, the creation's response is to voice praise and to sing.
Yeah.
And I think singing is, and maybe this is what Tolkien was on to as well with the creation story, is creation's response. Proper response of gratitude, thankfulness, but it's also the way in which we sometimes commune in some of the deepest levels as a response to encountering God in profound ways. And I really think that kind. One way of putting it, you say, where'd the lost go? I think oftentimes because of the de-emphasis on the gift of creation and what being a creature is, we've also detached from what singing is in relationship to the
Augustine
creator.
said, "He who sings prays twice."
Yeah, right.
So let me broaden this out, and maybe you guys jump on here anywhere you want to on here. Part of this too is I'm thinking of we've lost some of the songs of fatherhood. I know, not having had a father, watching men be good fathers to me is like a good song. And so when I see them be fathers, I'm like, I want to learn that song. I want to learn how to sing like that. That was one of the things that I fell in love with the brothers here, was watching them, how they dance with their kids and discipline their kids. And then it felt like it was musical. It had a rhythm to it. It had a beat to it. And I was like, I like this beat. I like this song. And I knew that I didn't know that song as well. And so when I saw them singing it, I'm like, I want to sing that song. And then I saw the same song happen with their wives in relationship to them. I'm like, wow. I won't tell the story, but I was at somebody's house and I was watching, one of the ladies was kind of getting snappy, and the husband just came by and put his hand on her shoulder and just rubbed her back, and she just, and woosah, and I just,
So that's how it's done.
Well, that man was full of the Holy Ghost.
Do we need to talk afterwards?
Hi, Mrs. Price.
Sometimes some of these spirits only come out through prayer and fasting. You know what I mean? So I can tell that man was full of the Holy Ghost. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But he knew the song, and so I think some of the songs that I'm saying, man, we don't, or engagement. I watch, and this is really beautiful. When Gabe was arrested and 2 other members were arrested and a few other members of Christ Church were cited here in Moscow, it happened while singing was happening. And so where I came from, I'm a Minneapolis guy. Y'all know what happened in Minneapolis, right? They tore things down. If they tried to arrest them, they tore it down. You gonna arrest us? We'll burn down your Target. We'll take the Cub Foods. Well, your streets won't have gravel anymore. We will rip this gravel up. Do you understand me? You understand? Okay, just as long as you know this is gonna go down. So when it happened with Gabe, in my flesh, Minneapolis kicked in. Oh no, let me tell you what you're not gonna do. What you're not gonna do is arrest his brother. And I watch Christians sing more and harder, stronger and harder, asking God to intervene in the moment. And it was only through the singing in that moment that my flesh was suppressed and said, God, you need to be the one to vindicate us right now. You have to be the one. And so anyway, I'm learning in being a community some of these songs that are directly connected to real world application that aren't just in my head. And so those are the songs that I'm like, okay, man, we're missing out on some of these songs so that when trials and troubles hit, we want to act out in our flesh when it's like, but...
One of the other things going on in all this is, and what Tolkien is drawing off of, and is this older medieval understanding that the whole universe is God's song. That the fact that it's all held together by the word. That word is Christ. That word is the word that spoke creation into existence. It's the word that holds all things together and upholds them all. But it's a word. It's the word that again has the music of the fullness of the Spirit. And so older, the medieval picture of the universe, though, was one, they'll speak of the music of the spheres, right? That the whole universe it really has a harmony. And so our lives are meant to be lived in harmony and in rhythm with the song that God is singing in the universe, and we all have a part to play. Dante's Divine Comedy is sort of the famous kind of archetype or the pinnacle of that picture.
They make a movie of that too, so I can watch that because I haven't read it.
I don't know. I think they'd ruin it, but the whole
it actually goes farther than that. Excuse me. It actually goes farther than that. Music was literally, in the medieval mind, the glue that held everything in the universe together.
Right.
It's the music of the spheres, but it's also the thing. Well, think about your heartbeat. It's a rhythm.
Right.
Your breathing is a rhythm.
Right.
All of these things.
Yes.
Music was the thing that governed everything that happened in the universe.
Right. And so the whole idea, though, of singing was in some sense to sort of actively join the chorus
in all creation,
join creation, join the song. But the idea, though, is if your heart is beating to that rhythm in a way, and your breath it's like your whole life, though, is supposed to be lived in harmony.
That's interesting.
And so you're there's you're talking about Tom Bombadil. He kind of, everything he says is kind of got this rhythmic-y, sing-songy intonation to it. And that's, I think, part of the point is that he is in tune with the nature of reality, the nature of the universe. He knows the song of the universe.
And he knows the songs that are, appropriate for a tree.
Yes.
He knows the song that's appropriate for a barrow wight.
Yes.
But getting back to this idea that you just brought up, Knox, about a father and his role, there's a part that only a father can sing. Mm-hmm. There's a part that only a mother can sing.
That's right.
If a mother tries to sing the father's part, she kind of sounds odd. If he tries to sing her part, he sounds odd. Because we're not made to sing each other's parts. We're made to sing the part that we have. Mm. There's a role that we have as fathers in the lives of our children. There's a role that we have as husbands in the lives of our wives. Mm-hmm. And what you described with putting the hand on the shoulder and calming down, all of that has to do with knowing how to sing your song and being able to sing it to your wife or your children.
You grabbing us?
Well, that comes down to knowing natures and purposes. Right. And another way of putting it is song. The reason song is at the heart of everything is because it is one of these ways that holds together the way that being a creature. The best definition, Christian theological definition of what it means to be a creature ordered towards God is truthful enactment of your creatureliness. To truthfully enact what you are created to be and do.
Come on now.
And so, and if you think about it, it's an ordered life. Right. And that ordering is connected to those harmonies and the logos.
That's what that music is.
And that's why music itself, and then you see some of the developments of music, it starts with one kind of thing, a rhythm or a melody or an idea, and it starts to add different layers to it. But what makes it work is the harmonizing of all those elements and they're ordering the right way.
Yeah.
So, okay, we don't have a lot of time for this, but I really want to get to it.
Yeah, we do. We still got like,
we good. Oh, good. Okay,
got
I like it.
15
All right. Well, in that
minutes.
case, come on, let's get to it. Living not by lies. I think the lies that people see, they don't want to live by, right? That they see them, they're very obvious. Like, okay, yeah, I'm not going to live by those. But what are some of the lies you guys see right now happening, probably in the last 2 years, that people don't see?
I'm going to just jump in.
Oh, do it.
And then they can chime in
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
But what they just said, that's what I would say. I don't want to, people don't see the fact that your calling to be a man is a calling to tell the truth about the nature of the universe and your nature that God gave you. That's your part to sing. And when you say, I don't want to be a man, or I don't want to be a husband, or I don't want to be a father, I don't want to sing that part truthfully. I mean, and the same thing goes for a woman. I don't want to be a woman. I don't want to be a mother. I don't want to be a wife. I think those are some of the really big places where people, it's like, yeah, I don't want to tell lies, but I want to mess with my nature.
Yeah.
I want to deny who God made me to be.
Within the church, what we see happening is people have bought into the lie of what it means to love someone.
Yes.
What it means to love someone is to affirm whatever it is that they say.
Right.
That's not love.
No. Right.
So
I mean,
that's a big one.
if they're lying about what they're doing or what they say makes them feel right or feel good or really who they are, if they're lying though, it's not love to affirm the lie.
Right.
One element, you guys just got me thinking about, like, lies and music. Isn't there something to it where singing is a stronger way of talking about things? So it's
Let's go back to the Augustine quote.
Right.
Praying twice.
Yeah, that's right.
I think Luther said something similar about, like, you say it twice or something, like you underline it if you sing it. I think that's exactly right. Go ahead. Is that what you're going to say?
Well, and I think that's also why our culture, I mean, it's not like our music does have lies in it. You got Cardi B, WAP, you got lies in music. But I think a culture that is full of lies is one reason why music's so bad, because you don't want to sing. It's harder to sing the lies. It's one thing to say the lie, but then when you start singing it, it seems like it kind of ups the ante of what the kind of condemnation you're trying to bring on yourself,
This is what the good bishop over here was saying earlier, though. Tom had songs for certain situations. One of the things that we figured out in church is our culture doesn't have church songs. What they have is the same stuff that they sing anywhere else. There's nothing sanctified about it. There's nothing set apart about it. Right. This is the lie that I think that's been permeating is the lack of understanding that the Old Testament is applying itself still today. God's word of the Old Testament still applies. There is something that is holy about worship.
Yeah.
There is something that is holy about how we do worship. Hebrews 10 talks about the diverse baptism. Nothing was used in worship that wasn't baptized. It was set apart and sanctified. And all of our music has one vein and one lane. And we try and take this music over here and put in music. That's not it. And speaking of sanctified, I just have to bring it up. One of the things that bothered me about the Virginia setup was they did a video. Kamala Harris, did you guys see that video she did? She did a video for 300 black churches. Yes.
Oh,
not just churches, black churches.
Oh, she didn't let it go into white churches?
No, because that's not where they needed to vote.
Oh.
They needed those black folks because they was losing them. And so
she knew the white folk were going to vote Democrat?
No. She knew the white folks wasn't going to vote, period.
Oh.
So, like we talked about earlier. At least the Christians. But she did this video saying that you need to go out and vote for McAuliffe. And now the video's bad enough, but the fact that she did it so that it was presented in the middle of church service, so that she is being on par with the word of God.
Right.
It's no wonder why our culture is where it's at right now. Nothing is sanctified. Right. And I don't care if it was in a conservative church or a liberal church. It doesn't matter. I get just as mad as Jeffers. What's his name? Robert Jeffers? Yeah. Having these 4th of July church services where it's like, rah, America. It's like, whoa. This is a rah, Jesus moment. Yeah. You understand that? This is all about Jesus.
And let's not say rah. Jesus.
Okay. I mean, what I meant. But I agree. Point taken. Don't rah Jesus.
So I want to get back to, like, what are the lies that we're believing in our culture right now?
The culture of the church, the biggest lie is its current understanding of God.
That's kind of a big problem.
I think that's one of the biggest lies. It's the belief that God is the biggest thing around, the most powerful thing around, but of the same order of being as just about everything else. Another way of putting it is God has been so domesticated, brought into the household rather than the household ordered cosmologically toward the proper view of the transcendence of God. That brings everything down within this worldly frame of reference for everything.
Give me an example of that.
Well, I think what you were saying, there is no holiness. Why? Because there isn't anything distinct than the ordinary.
It's all the same.
It's all the same. Or the ordinary isn't as enchanted as it truly is. We've been cut off spiritually, if you will, from the full reality that we're living and moving and having our being in. And then that comes all the way down to we start, therefore, to forge identities, not in light of what we're created to be and the relationships of marriage and children and everything else, but almost fabricated, or the kinds of relationships that are the result of our loves being malformed. And so we start to order our lives, define ourselves, and these were lie after lie after lie, that this is who I am. So I think, for me, after the doctrine of God, we live a lie of that, then that there is no order of transcendence, that lie in culture, and then what the nature of the human being, why what we are, why we're here, how we're to order ourselves. I mean, I think those are the places where these lies creep up over and over again, to the point where people can watch politicians lie to their face, or the news lie to their face, and they don't care as long as it is affirming their identity. The lying doesn't matter. Because what is true for them is only the reaffirmation of what they think is true about themselves, their identity.
Well, and when people lie, they will inevitably believe any lie. Right. So if you practice lie, then you're going to believe any lie, which is why we got transgenderism and all this. We'll believe anything now. Fauci's mass work and all that stuff. We just believe it. Glenn, what do you think is some of the lies that our culture is believing?
Well, there are, within the church, there are so many, it's kind of hard to actually even begin to enumerate them. One of the things, though, that I would point to is I don't know exactly if this lands as a lie, but it's the loss of the sanctification of time. So, for example, if you go to a monastery, go back to the Benedictine monasteries.
I don't want.
It says in the book of Psalms, "I will praise you 7 times a day."
Right.
So the monks got together 7 times a day to sing the Psalms.
Right.
Their prayer 7 times a day was singing Scripture. Right. Now, I don't advocate going back to that, but what that tells you is that their entire day, the entire rhythm of their life, was organized around worship.
Yeah. They worked through the entire Psalter in a week.
Right.
Every week. They did all 150 Psalms.
And
7 times 7.
Yeah, and they sang them.
It's almost...
I don't know what you mean by that, Gabe.
49?
It means being forgiven 70 times.
Okay.
No. 7 Psalms, 1 day, 7 days a week. There you go.
But there's 150 Psalms.
Yeah, well, I was like,
that's right.
I was trying to help you with the math, and I'm like, how do they sing through all the Psalms in 1 week when it's 7 times?
But they don't do just one at a time.
No, they'll do multiple Psalms at every service.
Thank you for clarifying, Glenn. This was just a debate.
Try it.
This was between me and Toby, and I was winning up until you chimed in and you gave him the loop.
No, but
mea culpa.
That's Latin, Gabe. But explain sanctification of time. So
That's where I was about to go.
So explain that more. So I'm following you, but explain it.
Okay, so if you look at the monks, just to use them as the example, their entire day was structured around worship.
Yeah.
Everything, they told time by what monastic hour, what service is coming up.
When's the next prayers?
When's the next prayers? The average Christian in America, according to a Barna survey that I read about, although I didn't find the original, prays something like 2 to 6 minutes a day.
Yeah.
What are they doing with the rest of their time? I guarantee, the vast majority of them don't read their Bibles at all.
Yeah.
They're on Facebook.
We found out they're on their phones, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So, but our lives, which are really time, our lives are supposed to be dedicated to God. And we don't take time alone with God typically. We don't think about our work as being done as unto the Lord. We don't view our community service, our politics, our family life, our recreation. We don't view any of that stuff as an expression of worship and thanks to God. And as a result, our life is completely unsanctified.
So
there's nothing holy about it.
That's good. Yeah, that's good.
Kind of practically what you're talking about. I'll never be a monk. I couldn't do it.
They did brew beer,
But I would stop by the monk and have a drink with them.
You're married,
But
don't worry.
I'm married. I just, and my wife, I couldn't do it. But kind of practically speaking, like in our modern times, basically what you're saying is like, when you have breakfast, give thanks to God. Structure your day around, giving thanks at breakfast, giving thanks at lunch, giving thanks at dinner. Maybe when you're driving in the car, pray. That's practically what you're driving at.
Sure. When I was at the university, when I was driving in, I had my own particular routine that I did. And when I drove to campus, there were a particular set of things I prayed about. When I drove home, there were a particular set of things that I prayed about. That was typically Thanksgiving primarily. There are, because I was leaving.
Because you were leaving. I got it. Glenn.
But there were also other times during the day where I would do Lectio Divina, a devotional practice, where I would have more structured prayers, things like that. Because I've heard people say things like, I'm glad we've got a midweek prayer service because I can't go a whole week without that shot in the arm.
Yeah.
I discovered I couldn't go a whole day without it.
Yeah.
So returning regularly, setting up your own routine, your own structure. You don't have to do the monastic hours. Set up your own routine, your own structure of prayer and time in the Word, because otherwise your day is not going to be dedicated to God. It is not going to be sanctified, and it is not going to accomplish that for which God created you.
So push this out to like mothers, who are dealing with their kids all day. How do you, I get to drive in a car sometimes, or,
You don't let your wife drive in the car?
It's a horse buggy.
My strong suspicion is that mothers dealing with small children have a better idea of praying without ceasing than I do.
Bars,
Oh man,
that is.
I want to point out though that I want to combine what you said with what you said earlier, Tom, because you have to know the God you're praying to, and obviously, to have that kind of dedication, you would need the Spirit driving you to the living God. But it's the real transcendent God, the one you were talking about. That's where when you've come into the presence of that living transcendent God who is wholly other, that is the thing that sanctifies. So it's not the throwing the prayer up, the Hail, Mary.
No.
Not in any sense.
Yeah.
But
the football sense.
But in the sense that, it has to be that God.
It's the constant communion with the inner life of the triune God. What have we been, our adopted son, being adopted sons and daughters is our union with Christ and his son, the Son's relation to the Father and the Trinity. We've been invited into the inner sanctum of God's joyous eternal communion. That's why Augustine will say our heart sits restless when it tries to rest on creaturely things, but it rests in God. It finds its completion. But that joy is incomparable. The transcendent, the relationship that we have with the transcendent one is incomparable. It's the pearl of great price. It's what the fisherman will give up everything for, his whole business and everything to follow.
Right.
And that's why even with suffering, they'll count it a joy set before them. Why? Because there is nothing like that joy of knowing God. And so it's the pursuit of that. Notice creation. The creation itself attests to the invisible attributes of God. And what is the truthful enactment of creatureliness, where your identity is to be found, is thankfulness.
Yeah.
And in light of seeing this aspect of God, this transcendent aspect of God in the gifts of creation. And what happens when we break that chain, when we become ungrateful? The rest of our loves get malformed. The rest of our relationships get distorted. And then we start to love the creature rather than the creator. And then the whole, so the reversal of that is what Glenn's talking about.
Just one thing that I think is really important that he said in there that could easily be missed. We are invited to participate in the inner life of the Trinity.
Amen.
We are invited into the eternal triune God himself.
Right.
Study this through John 14 to 16, the Upper Room Discourse. What Jesus is saying about who we are and what our relationship to God is staggering. Right. And yet most people take it for granted. They don't even have a clue. Right.
Well, and I'll just add, to bring this full circle, while there were some things about the Benedictine movement that I'm not excited about, nevertheless, I will say, in this, to the extent that they gave themselves wholly to knowing God, to being in communion with God, don't miss the fact that it actually didn't make them less connected to creation. It actually made them more connected to creation. And arguably, I mean, you mentioned in passing that they brewed beer. They brewed really good beer. They became very proficient farmers, and they worked the land. And many of the booming civilization that came out of the West, with the help of some Reformation freedom, was built by a sort of monastic undergirding. It was when you know the living God, when you know the transcendent triune God, you know and love the things that he knows and loves. And that turns out to be not only him, but his people and his world. And so the thought that, giving yourself to the Psalms or giving yourself to prayer would somehow, separate you or distance you from creation is absolutely ridiculous. It makes you more in tune with the creation. Again, like Tom Bombadil, it makes you, the world for what it is. You love it for what it actually is. You celebrate it for what it is because it's God's favorite.
Yeah.
Let's add one more thing there. Every reform movement in church history, up to and including the Reformation, started in a monastery.
Yeah.
And the reason is because monasteries taught people values that were different from the values of the world. Oh. So when the church became more worldly, you needed somebody from outside of it, because values are formed in community. Right. You needed somebody from outside it to come correct it. Since the Reformation, it's been things like Methodist societies, things like that. So again, it's this intentional community thing, and we're back to Rod Dreher.
Right. And I will say at the center of all of that is the Word. Right. So it's going to the Word, and it's intense times in the Word, praying the Word, singing the Word, and that's the Word from the outside that breaks all our lies.
We can do this for probably another 2 hours. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
I know.
Appreciate you guys for being here. This is a blast. We need to do it very soon.
The Pugcast on the Fight Laugh Feast Network.
Yes. Check it out. If you're not already listening to these guys regularly, what's wrong with you?
Yeah. So if you're single, you guys see the music just ran out. See what you did there? I'm supposed to have. So you guys know the rule. And when you hear the music, get out so I can get to it and start doing it.
I was excited.
Yeah, okay, let me try this again. There we go. If you're single, get married. And if you're married, have kids. And if you have kids, go baptize them. Until next week, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength.
I got one more thing.
Love your neighbor as yourself. Go fight, laugh, and feast. This is CrossPolitic.
He muted you.
What were you saying? You were saying something, Gabe? Yeah. Play with me. What you're not going to do. Let me tell you what you're not going to do.
Welcome to No Quarter November. My name is Douglas Wilson. I'm glad you decided to join us. Now, some people want to know, what is it about November that makes us want to burn things? What's with that? There's a little libation for those evangelicals who think I ought not to be drinking stuff like that. The reason we're doing this is not that we think that there's a moral obligation that we have to be incendiary, because we don't have a moral obligation to be incendiary. What we're saying is that the world has mysteriously, for some bizarre reason, become flammable. So, the world is flammable. Everything catches fire these days. All you have to do is say something like white babies or something like men shouldn't have sex with unstable women. Things that would have gone past without comment in a saner time. But we don't live in a sane time. We're not incendiary people here at Cannon Press. We are ordinary people, normal people, in a flammable time. And that explains why things burn in November. The basic point of No Quarter November on my blog is that normally, 11 months out of the year, when I say outrageous things or things that I know that people will take as outrageous, I make a point of qualifying it. I call it, it's not always in the second paragraph, but I call it the second paragraph rule, where I say, now, when I say this, I'm not saying this and that and the other thing. I qualify, and I qualify, and I qualify. And nobody pays the slightest bit of attention to my qualifications. And so I decided a few years ago that let's see what happens when I don't qualify anything. If I just speak the truth, what happens then? Well, check in No Quarter November, and you'll see what happens then. My exhortation to all of you is that if it seems like everything's gone nuts, if it seems like the world's on fire, just keep doing what you're supposed to be doing. Just stay with whatever your plans were. Keep doing what you ought to be doing. Stay at your post. Ignore the world. See? Well, I gotta get home for dinner.
Kiss the sun, sing the song if you be his prophet. Black swan with the boy sling. Came alone, bringing stones, no fear about a skull in